All right. Look at that, very professional. Looking off to the center here, looking offside. Very professional operation. All right, Tony Barnes. Introduce yourself for the people who don't know. Just like real quick, give me an intro. Who you are, what's your deal?
Good Lord. I'm Tony Barnes. I've been making games for 4 decades. Art, music, code, design, the whole shebang. Because, 40 years ago, you had to do all that. I've worked on a whole bunch of stuff, over 100 games shipped, and let's not talk about the ones that didn't ship. Worked at, places big and small, EA, Rockstar, Collective, all sorts of things. We'll probably get into all that.
Yeah,
but I'm old and crusty. I've been around.
Well, you have won a Lifetime Achievement Award. Don't you think it's a little premature? Don't they give that to people when they're almost dead? You're not almost dead.
Yeah, that was crazy. 2019, they reached out, and I think they thought they were reaching out to, my kid or somebody, and they were like, hey, we have this Jerry Lawson Lifetime Achievement Award we want to give, to your dad, Tony Barnes. I'm like, I'm Tony Barnes. They're like, oh, you're alive? Because I think they think that someone that would be doing that for, so long and whatever would be older and probably fallen off or retired or whatever. But, I'm going to die at my desk, really. I got like another probably at least 20 years in me. So
what is this dying at your desk thing? Like, where's this drive coming from? Don't you want to go on vacation? Have you ever gone on vacation?
Isn't this a vacation? We're at GDC right now.
Kind of.
No,
How about a vacation you haven't been able to write off to the IRS? Like a real vacation.
I think I'm going to probably start doing those because my wife's like, hey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, when I got into this, I just, I don't know. It just keeps going, and it's 24/7 for me, man.
Well, you like it. It's not like a.
I love it.
Yeah, okay.
It's what I was born to do. Seriously, like, I could do a lot of shit. Or sorry, I can do a lot of stuff.
You could swear. I don't care.
There you go.
The algorithm means nothing to me. I don't have any subscribers.
All right. So I have all these little talents and all that stuff, and it's perfect to coalesce into like game making for me. If I wasn't making games, maybe I'd be, I don't know, like a DP on film or like trying to do soundtracks or something like that, right? But for me, it all comes together in the games, and it's just great to like have this thought in my head and then be able to realize it. That's really how it even started.
Yeah.
Because before, I'd be playing like D&D and stuff, and I'd always loved DM because I wanted to like tell a story and kind of manage the whole thing and all this. And I started doing comics, and that was because I wanted people to see what I saw in my head when I was DMing. It's not because I like wanted to be like the next Chris Claremont or something. That's a guy that worked on X-Men, for you people that don't know that. But so it's always been about like what I see, what I hear in my head, and wanting to share it. And games just they just work for me to do that. It's just a medium that's, I think, perfect for me. Because also, it's not just about like, what's the aesthetic or what's the sound or whatever. Like, it all has to kind of like come together. And I love when I see someone playing my game and I get a reaction from them, especially like, of course, the reaction, whatever the reaction is that I actually wanted. It's like they're scared or they're happy, they're exhilarated, they're like, oh, I'm a badass, I just made that, right? So everything that I do is to kind of like get that vision out, and then just like tune towards getting the reaction that I want from them. When I get that reaction, I'm just like, oh yes, yes. Like, I got a game, Vector Guard. So it's a 2.5D, like side scrolling, but it's mainly vertical, doesn't matter. It's like a vector thing, right? Or like pseudo vector. And it's about, it really is just about like blowing shit up. I was like, man, I want to do something that like, it's just about blowing crap up, but not like boom blocks or something. I want it to be like kind of old school arcade and all this. And then there was like this arcade game that was or it was an Atari game called Caverns of Mars, right? And in Caverns of Mars, you went down, vertical shmup, you shot stuff, and then when you got to the bottom, you blew up a thing, and you went back up, right? And they did like some remake or something. That's cool, but it's different. They turned in like some endless runner with roguelike thingies, and I thought you're missing one of the things that like gave me a chubby when I played that game, which was blow up the thing, go back up, right? So I started from there. It's like the aesthetic comes from what can I do that kind of fits this like bring in old school and new school and instantly tell someone like what they're in for, right? Because it's like vector. You're instantly not thinking it's a boomer shooter or anything like that because nobody would do it like that, right? And every explosion's visceral, right? So I get that from people, like they respond to that. You blow up the thing, and I just kept fine tuning the timing and the music is all dynamic to like when you come all the way back up to get out, it's generally down to just a few seconds and everything kind of culminates, and I see people when they play it and they're sweating because they're trying to get back up, and maybe there's a whole bunch of shit they didn't blow up and all this stuff, and it all comes together, and I'll see someone and they'll just make it, and and they'll be like, oh, I just made it, whether it's on a stream you can hear them say it, or in person, like I see their face and I'm like, mission accomplished, right? So that's.
Where do you observe these people playing? Is this like at festivals and stuff? Like, where are you observing these players?
Yeah, part of the reason I come to GDC is, besides just hooking up with old friends and all that, is to see people play. So I'll go to these showcases and festivals, Comic-Con, things like that, because also it's so much harder to like tissue test, to get testers in and all that and have them play. It's a lot harder nowadays to kind of coordinate that. So I utilize these kind of things in the industry, and honestly, outside of just paying my bills, like that's what it's about for me, is the reaction. Like I love when I see, I love it when a plan comes together, but I love it when I see people react to what I made, or like online someone's like, man, I grew up with your game. I used to play, I don't know, like Desert Strike on my dad's lap. We played together, and or I used to cut school with a bunch of my friends, and we go play General Chaos or something. So, like, those are the things that motivate me, is getting my vision out and getting a reaction back, and people saying, you were my childhood or whatever. It's sure, it's a little, it's part ego boost, but it's like I made an impact, and those people, may go on and make an impact the same way. Sorry. The same way that like all these little things made an impact on me, I mean, I grew up with Ray Harryhausen, Clash of Titans, all that stuff, Star Wars, Prince. These are, these were my North Stars. These things, and then there's lots of little things in between that just like had an impact on me in a positive way, whether the person knew or not just like someone big making aliens or something, because I love Cameron also. But it's like, it's not just about like those guys. It's about all the little people in between, little things. And so, one day I was just like, yeah, why do I do this? I don't know. I think I was like at year like 25 or something, probably having some sort of crisis.
The quarter life crisis, as it's called.
Man, we have crises all the time.
Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, why do I do this? And it's like, oh yeah, I remember why I do this. I think you gotta always kind of remember why you did it.
It's kind of interesting though, like the era you came up in, like you're talking about playing D&D. What was that, like early 80s, right? It's like
82.
Yeah, like people don't realize this, right? But there was a time when D&D wasn't nerdy. Like everybody played it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like my sister was a dungeon master. She's as far from a nerd as possible. And like video games were not nerdy back then. It was like the national pastime. Like everybody, there was a Pac-Man machine in every corner of every store, you know? But a lot of your ideas seem to be based in that era. Like that's the core gem of the game, and then you build it for modern audiences. I feel like at least.
I mean, yeah. If we're not talking about the AAA stuff, yeah. Like RetroNinja's like.
I mean, it's called RetroNinja.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, but when I went independent in 2020, right before COVID, and then all of a sudden I start going, okay, what am I going to do? And I actually started with I was like, even though the project name even is SMBFPS, right, which stands for Super Meat Boy First Person Shooter or whatever. So the first thing I was doing was like, oh, people like Mirror's Edge. What if I make Mirror's Edge just like hard, platycore, kill you kind of thing? And people like all these surfing games where you're like kind of running really fast and it's all first person. And I was like, I could do one of those. But I still had also the AAA mentality that AAA people really need to break free from, which is all this baggage of what are the table stakes for what you can, what you have to do. All these like, it's got to have this, got to have multiplayer, it's got to have like 100 levels, it's got to be, an all-day sucker and turn the player into an ATM machine. It's got to have a level letter. There's all this baggage that comes with that because they spend so much money and they have so many people working on it, right? So even though I started solo and all that, 30 years of not solo and learning production pipeline and everything with AAA meant I have to, shake off a lot of baggage, and I didn't. So I burned like a good year or two just getting buried under scope creep and like, good meaning like publishers and stuff coming in. We love this here, you should do this and that and tug in this direction. So then, my mother passed away. Wow. And like my mother, super practical, like she got me into the computers to make sure that I wasn't on the street. Because I grew up like super poor and we were just on the outside of like a good neighborhood.
Where was this?
I grew up in San Francisco. Okay. Out near like SF State, Park Merced, if anybody knows where that is. But at the time, it was kind of a borderline neighborhood. I'm not sure what it's like that now. But yeah, we were dirt poor. I mean, like super poor. And my mother did not want me out playing in the streets. Once I started getting, close to being a teenager and stuff. And so she wanted to give me something that...
keep you inside.
Kind of keep me inside and kind of put me on a path that was to show that there was something else that I could do. But she's super practical, right? So even though she could draw and taught me how to draw, she never thought she could draw. And she knew I could draw, but she was like, that's not like a real job you could ever get into. And then I had an affinity for computers because they put Apple IIs in the schools. And nobody knew how to use them. And I said, I know how to use them, which I didn't, but I learned quickly. And it was great because then I could animate stuff, but without having to deal with the team and all that time. So it seemed like a good thing. So she worked her ass off to, on layaway, get me a used Atari 1200 XL. Man, I miss that machine.
Pretty sweet computer.
Yeah, 64K, man. You can't beat that. That was a big deal back then. But didn't even have a tape driver. I had to eventually get a tape driver. But so I would make these things and make these games, and she always would be like, do you when are you gonna get a real job? Even like 10 years after actually working in the business, when are you gonna get a real job? So I never made anything that she was like, yay, I want to play it, right? When she passed away, it was just like, I don't know. I got this big project, it's overscoped, feeling like I'm drowning in it. I just went, put it off to the side and started another game because her favorite games were like Crystal Castles and Marble Madness and Congo Bongo. And so she liked isometric. She loved like moving things with trackball, and kind of like, you know, Pac-Man-y, cute for lack of a better term. But she was really serious about it. Like she was serious, like just like my wife. It's very serious. Like, you know, my wife's like a tournament Miss Pac-Man player.
Okay.
Right? People just look and go, oh, what does she know about games? And it's like, no, she's the real deal. She's just not about like modern games. So I was like, okay, let me make something. And I started this game as an homage to Marble Madness and, you know, to my mother, and it's BPM Boy. And as it came together, I realized that I was doing something that I'm good at, which is kind of synthesizing lots of things. So, okay, it's got some Super Monkey Ball, it's got some Marble Madness, it's got some Crystal Castle, it's got some De Blob, which more people should have played. But and it's all just stirred up, and then it's spat back out through my lens. And I did that, and I was like, yeah, that's my brand. Not trying to make hardcore Mirror's Edge that looks like it came from.
Oh, I
Destiny
saw that
artists.
game though.
Yeah,
Wait,
Run Die Run
yeah,
Again.
did that ever come out?
No.
Okay, it looked
because
pretty good.
And it
And then some other game came out that was just like it. It made a bunch of money. Was it Ghost Runner or whatever?
yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you should cut it down in quarters, make a small version of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. It's like understanding scope creep, understanding the market, not getting so far up your ass that you don't really see.
Well, was this the first time that was like, this is your transition from AAA to indie, so you had no idea. Like, I feel like a lot of people that are sort of like from the veal pen of a cubicle in a company don't understand how much work the company does for them. When they go indie, they realize, wait, I got to do everything, and which includes having to reduce the scope of what you're working on to handle all the other stuff. So that was probably your little baptism of fire there, figuring that out for yourself.
And I mean, anybody who knows me, like peers in the business know that I'll talk mad shit about them and to them. So, because I'm always like, you know, you guys, you know, you're in your echo chamber, blah 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 blah. Look around you, da da da, right? And I do, I practice what I preach, but I'm still a sucker and still got caught in it. I let, I kind of let outside influences. And it was easy because
From who?
To, you know, a publisher and stuff.
Oh, they never listen to a publisher. They don't know anything.
But it's like, you know, like I said, there were a lot of bad habits to break.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And then all of a sudden the whole thing gets like scattered. And we're talking solo. You know, I do these things solo.
You do the art. You do the art.
I do the art.
You do the code. You do the design. You do the music.
Music, yeah, layout, post, the whole
Yeah.
shebang. And this was pre-AI, and I still don't really use it much at all. Excuse me. Mainly just like, hey, you know, suggest a name for me. And that's where, like, you know, crazy-ass names like VectorCart come from. But, yeah, it was like, I should have just, like, stayed the course, reminded myself of what it was like when I got into this, where I would just do something quickly and spit it out and see how people liked it, and then move on. Instead, my brain was like, this has to be the most amazing thing still. It's my debut and it's just all this baggage. So
I don't know. I got to say, when you showed me the video of that first game, I couldn't believe you did it all yourself. It looked like it was done. So I don't know. It was pretty amazing. I don't know.
yeah,
You should dust it off.
My business partner, my wife, was like, you know, you're gonna die, and it's gonna be like Prince. I'm gonna have to go through your vault and have all this stuff. And she's not wrong.
Well, I mean, you know, there is a place for your vault, because I actually bumped into a guy. I bumped into somebody at a conference at Augmented World Expo who made a VR museum.
Oh yeah, someone made a VR museum for me.
Where is it? Is it in UE? Is it in Fortnite or something? Yeah. So I don't know if anyone wants to go see the legacy, but he's still living. He's not dead. Of Tony Barnes. You can go to the Tony Barnes Museum.
Yeah, there's Tony Barnes Museum. Shout out to Malcolm Muller.
Yeah, that's the guy. I met him. At the
Yeah, no, and that guy's great. You know, I think we met right after Strider shipped or something at E3. Because I remember someone coming up to me, and I'm pretty sure it was Malcolm, and Malcolm will kill me if it's not. But he came up and he just said thank you. I was wearing like a Strider dev shirt.
Oh,
He just
okay.
said thank you. And the thank you, you know, was multi-layered because of Strider fan. So Like, it's like, thank you for the game. Thank you for giving me a game that I wanted to play that was an homage and proper homage to the franchise and everything. And thank you for being, you know, a leader in the business, you know, a black creative director, a design director out there doing it. And so ever since then, you know, we're friends and talk on the, you know, Facebook and all that stuff. And yeah, he was like, I got this thing, and he sends me, and it's just like, holy crap. And yeah, that kid's great. He's out there, you know, doing TED Talks and stuff now.
Yeah, I'm talking a little bit about maybe doing something because he's, you know, I don't really know a ton about UEFN. So I've been talking to him about working. We just haven't found something to do yet. But yeah, I met him at World Expo. And I looked at his. I was surprised to see this museum.
He's big on, he's big on whatever emerging tech is going
Yeah.
on. And so, like I said, yeah, that's great. And again, not really, not like about my ego. I'm not saying that I.
Well, it was his idea. He made the. You weren't like, please make a monument to me. He decided to do it. Yeah.
But I don't want anybody to get the impression that, like, you know, I don't appreciate being appreciated, right? Because that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, if somebody says, "Man, you're a legend," it's good, it's great, because there's plenty of people out there that are like, "You're shit. Who cares?
Yeah.
Whatever," right? And I think that people don't. I don't know. There's a lot of people that are just like, oh, just brush it off and all this. It's like, I don't know about that. Like, because I care. It's not that I just care about me, you know, whatever. But I care about game developers, and I care about players. Because, again, like, I can see something in my head. I can crystallize in my head. It's one of the things that, like, it makes me a good, like, design director, is that I can see there's a point in development. I know the game backwards and forwards, and anyone can come to me and say, when I do this on level this, then what happens? And that level doesn't exist. Those play mechanics don't exist. But in my head, I have formed the entire game, and I can sit there and play it as if I'm playing it from memory. And actually then translate that into, you know, like tasks and whatever, and all that fun stuff. So just like wanting to make a game, like if I wanted to make a game and not have other people see it and enjoy it, then I probably wouldn't make the game, because it's here, right? I make these things so that other people can play them and see them and enjoy them. And so to that effect, I care. I care about what players think. And so if somebody tells me, you know, you fucking suck, then it's like, because for a moment, I care that they didn't like it. You know, with the people that are just out there just to, you know, get enragement and want to hurt people, it passes quickly. It's like, whatever. That's just some asshole, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, you know, being a black creative director out here, we're sort of in this new golden age of open racism, I feel. I feel like
that
you've
too.
got, you know, I've seen you battle online with a lot of these goons. But, you know, you've also had some experiences, I think, in your career where you've faced up against this.
Yeah, you know, so it's interesting. I don't think that, like, I honestly don't think that a lot of people know that some of their favorite games are made by, you know, a black guy. And for a lot of people, it doesn't matter. And for some, it might. So I guess I might lose some fans, whatever. But
Or gain some new ones.
I don't know. But it's like, it's crazy because this business, especially when I got into it, completely anonymous, you know.
Yeah, there's no there was no Zoom interviews. You show up at the interview, and it's the first time they've ever seen you.
Yeah. So like, even my first gig, my first professional gig, which is in San Francisco, actually kind of down the street from where we're at now. You know, I sent the game in, and they accepted it, sent me back all the paperwork to sign my life away, and then cut me a check. This was 1985 or something like that, and the check was like for $2,500, right? I didn't have a bank account.
Yeah.
I gave it to my mother. She was like, "What the hell's this?" And I said, "You know those games you told me to stop playing? Well, actually, I was making, and this is for one of them I made." And she said, "You know, how long did that take?" I said, "You know, it's like 2 or 3 days." And she just kind of like, and that was when she worked to get me a tape drive and all that, and started bank account. Then, fast forward to probably 10 or so years later than that. Yeah, I'm like interviewing at, so the reason I brought that up is because then I eventually ended up working for the publisher. And it's funny because they didn't really care, but one of them was actually like, I don't want to say bold enough, but like, he was like, "Well, holy shit, I didn't know you were black, right?" But like, that was after I'd been hired and we've been working together for a couple of months, right? And he was just like, "You know, dude, holy shit, I didn't know you were black." And I'm, "Holy shit, I know you were white." Because we have mutual respect, right? And it was like, you know, just kind of this like little thing. But you know, later, like, God, I know how was that? It was like 99. So I, you know, born and raised in the city, grew up in the Bay Area, never had any plans of leaving. But then, I don't know, things around here was just like messy job-wise, and the like prices of everything were going stupid, traffic was getting worse. And I was just like, you know what? I think I could move around. So I started looking around in other places. And I interviewed with this place in Texas. And
Plus, this was peak Texas game industry, right? This was the time when Texas was the
Yeah, I
quote,
mean, we're talking-
Hollywood of computer gaming.
yeah, we're talking 99.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking.
That's when I was in Texas.
We're talking, God, you know, of course, it was kicking
Yeah.
in.
Ion Storm, that's where I was at.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, shout out to Romero.
Ritual.
You know,
3D Realms. It was popping.
Retro Studios. It's so funny because whenever I start saying retro, I always think RetroNinja. But anyway, so yeah, so like I was like, oh, Texas, yeah, okay. So I'm talking to this place, I talked to a couple of people on their leadership, and I talked to the studio head. Talked to the studio head for hours over the course of a couple of calls, and he was just like, "All right, this is done. Yeah, you know what? Yeah." So he gave me a verbal. You know, we made all this agreement and all this stuff, and he was like, you know, "I'll get you some paperwork, but you know, we want to get you down here and meet
So he still hadn't seen you yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So, you know, I got a verbal to come and be a, you know, design director or creative director, whatever it was, you know, whatever that kind of title was.
Yeah.
I can't remember at the time. But then he's like, yeah, so we'd like to fly you down, check out, you know, check out the office, meet people, check out the area. They had this whole thing set up where, you know, they take me and my then girlfriend, now wife, around Austin. And yeah, so get there, and I meet with a couple people. Then it's time to meet with the studio head, and I'm sitting there and talking to him and all this stuff. And he seemed like, you know, kind of disinterested. And I'm like, oh, great, this guy. Which is really crazy because he wasn't like that on the phone. Then he says to me, he just like kind of leans back and he just says, you know, you don't look the way you sound.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I get that a lot. And then all of a sudden, like the dinner I was supposed to have with the team, they all got sick. All the other people I was supposed to talk to, you know, they weren't around. It was just kind of all of a sudden, poof. And so I went back to the hotel and told my girlfriend, I was like, yeah, you know what? Just order whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was like, what's up? And I'm all, I don't look the way I sound.
Have you heard that before at the time?
I mean, I've heard that.
Yeah, you knew what it meant.
But not, yeah.
Yeah.
It means the same as, well, it's actually much stronger than things like, oh, you're well-spoken.
Yeah, you're well-spoken, yeah.
Or whoa, one of my favorites that is a favorite passive-aggressive that I actually get from not just white people, no offense, but I also get it from black people. What are you mixed with, right? I get that, and I say I'm mixed with black, and they go, yeah, but what else? Because I don't know, I guess I'm light. You know, the eyes might be green today. Are they blue, green? I don't know what they are today. Whatever.
Bluish green.
Yeah. So bam, there you go. Right. That's the thing called genetics and recessive genes, right? But my mom's black, and my, you know, hell, my, you know, my aunt, you know, and everything, and my grandma, like, they were part of the. I forgot if it has like a name, but you know, they were colored women because that's what they were called at the time. Actually, I think they were called Negroes that rode across America in Jim Crow America on their motorcycles. You know, so I think I'm black enough.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but it's a shame. You know, the game that they made turned out. You know, I like it. A lot of people like it. Turned out well. It's fine. But it's a shame because that guy missed out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, look at what you've done since. I mean, you know, and we don't have to say the name of the company, but I will say that the company, if people actually guess, as it exists now, has nothing to do with the company back then. Like everybody's gone. Like it's like, yeah.
Yeah. No. That guy actually ended up getting in a spot of trouble, and he's not
very famously, yes.
Yeah, and he's out of the business
for good reason.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you know, that happens. I've had a few of those every once in a while, but it's one of those things. Like, again, you know, my mother always had isms and stuff like, you know, you're gonna have to work twice as hard for half as much, and all kinds of things like that. And like, you know, I was taught that when I go out, I represent all. And I don't think a lot of parents, certainly not nowadays, teach that when you're out on the street, you know, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing everybody that came before you and all this, right? So that's...
But do you think that's fair to put on people? Like, I mean, although that may be true, is it really your responsibility to represent everybody? You know what I mean?
It shouldn't be.
Right. I mean, it's like,
but that's not,
should you care about that to a certain degree? Because it's like...
So here's the thing. Like, my mother would say a lot of things, right? Like, you know, you have to work twice as hard for half as much and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I could take that on and put it on my shoulders and have it weigh me down. But I take it and then I put it down and I step on top of it to get higher, right? So every single thing that she said to me was not something that I took on to...
Like as a burden.
Yeah.
It was just, it's a truth that you have to be aware of.
Right. And it's just like, and so that carries into, even to this day, I've watched a whole bunch of people play my games here at GDC. And some people, you know, there's a small percentage that I look and go, not for them, you know, so they're not getting it, right? But a lot of it I look and I go, they didn't get that. And instead of me going, they're stupid. Like, why didn't they get that? I go, what am I doing wrong, right? And it's not me putting myself down. It's just like me going, I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't do the right thing for them to understand what's going on in the game so that they can get the best out of the game and play it the way that I play it. So I got to figure out how I can communicate to them or how I miscommunicated to them, right? And it's the same thing of like all these you know, these issues or things like someone looking at me and going, oh, wow, you're black. You can't be the lead for my game anymore or whatever, you know. I just go, sucks to be you.
Yeah.
And then I will go and crush you.
Yeah, it's like I thought we all wanted to make money here. What is this? What is going on? Yeah.
I mean, part of Vectagard is, like I said, I think that the remake is neato and all that stuff or whatever they did, but I feel like they've dropped the ball. So I just want to crush them into a small little hole and make what they should have made.
So in some way, is this message woven into your games in some way? And is it subtle, or you know, is this sort
of... I actually think that I'm starting to realize that a lot of the messages in my games are a bit too subtle.
But that's fine. It gives some you want a layer of
but I
people to
will
dig
say
out.
that one of my favorite directors is Stanley Kubrick.
Right.
So,
Although I do feel a lot of people read a little too deep into Stanley Kubrick's movies.
do.
They have a whole thing about it that he probably never thought of. That
They
they've-
do.
You know, yeah.
They do. But somewhere in between is me.
But you want people to do that. You know what I mean? I would love people to scrutinize my games like they scrutinize Stanley Kubrick, making 3-hour documentaries about a subtext that doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Oh man,
That's free marketing.
I have Room 237 on repeat. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like Strider. Just the other day, I was going through and talking with my kids about my look, right? And
What do you mean, your physical look or the look of the game, the style of the game?
So
okay,
so like RetroNinja is, because it's just me. Everything RetroNinja is going to look like.
yeah,
what I
you have a
wanna
house
look like,
style,
right?
yeah.
Right, and but the games I've done throughout the years in AAA, they always have some bit of me in there, right? But my name's not above the title, so it doesn't become like a Tony Barnes thing, right? But if you look at them, you can start seeing a pattern. And just so going back from where I'm at now, you instantly just look at Strider. You can look at Strider, and you can look at BPM Boy, and even Run Die Run Again, and all this stuff. And you can go, even though I didn't do all the art in Strider, I was the director of and just kind of, sorry team, and you guys know it, but I kind of manhandled the whole thing.
Yeah. It's like the feel and the timing, all
Feels,
that stuff.
timing, how visceral it is, and the color palette and the contrast and everything. So Strider is high contrast, and it's colorful, it's visual riot, and so are the games I'm doing right now. And so I was looking at Strider and with my kids, and then I was talking about the subtle references, and I showed them a cutscene where Strider meets this prisoner who's supposed to be crazy, and he's locked up, and he babbles on, and he tells you about he's a quest giver, right? So instantly my kids knew the reference when this guy is all, what you must do is seek the black marketer. And I know that sounds like really weird, like that makes no sense, right? But the way that he says it, and the way that I had to explain to the voice actor to say it, is it's a riff on Megamind. And in Megamind, there's a point where he gets a new outfit, and he says, the Black Mamba. And the way he said it's just like so freaking funny. I loved it. It was so funny. And it was just like one of those little things. And there's tons of that in every one of my games. And like, there's a reference to one of my favorite movies in Strider, is Wizard of Oz. There's an Elvis hidden in every single level of Urban Strike. There's, in Jungle Strike, actually, there's an island that if you go to it, there will be 7 little characters. Basically, it's a Gilligan's Island. But the chopper can only hold 6.
Who are you going to leave? Which Gilligan's Island cast member are you going to leave?
Right.
I'm going to leave the billionaire.
People who found it would like go and then go away and thought they could come back and get the last one, and they were gone. Right? So there's lots of little crazy dumb shit like that in every one of my games over the past, 30, 40 years. And it just continues.
Has anybody found any of these things on their own?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But they haven't found them all.
Right. Okay.
They're gonna have to start doing.
You gotta put those in the
documentaries
museum.
on them.
You gotta put those, this would be an exhibit, the Easter eggs. I gotta ask you this one thing, because you grew up in the Bay Area, and this channel, anybody could tell, is heavily inspired by DJ Vlad, even the font, and my editing style. You knew, or DJ Vlad. You knew him in the Bay Area.
Yeah, knew him. Like we haven't communicated.
Well, you had a beef, weird online contentious art, because he made a statement about games.
I'm trying to remember.
It was something about like no gaming.
I have totally like blanked it out and just remember, because like games and gamers and game developers are very important to me. And in kind of that reverse order, no offense, gamers, but like game developers, and like I'm trying to remember.
He
but
made
it
a
was
comment about how like no game experience is better than real life or something like that. It wasn't that big, but I mean, it caused an uproar.
It was some bullshit.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, all right, that's it. I'm done. Right? You know, because, you know, he's from the Bay and we used to like be at parties together and all that stuff. And like, you know, I did some like round the way producing of people. And I used to mix and DJ and all that stuff. So that's kind of like where we crossed paths and whatnot before he became Vlad TV, right?
This is the Vlad the Butcher era of Vlad, you know.
Yeah, so there's like, you know, some, I don't know, there's probably some deep-rooted rivalry, something about that. But I remember he popped off something about game developers and games, and me just saying fuck that. And I actually, I'm trying to remember now.
It was basically,
I think we actually were going back and forth.
Yeah, there was a little
online.
back and forth.
Yeah, it was actually, we like aired our dirty laundry for a second, and then yeah, sorry, Vlad. I think I unsubscribed and haven't thought about.
Oh no,
you.
you have. Wow, okay.
Haven't thought about you in years, man. But you know, I'm willing to come on the show and we can hash it out.
He's interviewed a few. He interviewed the guy that's the new voice of Kratos. He has a couple game adjacent. You know, you know. So you know, it's.
All right, Vlad, if you see this, shout out, and you know, we can.
People say what they say about Vlad, but
online,
yeah.
but I'm not gonna.
I think he's a pioneer. I mean, say what you say about him, but the guy started, he was the first guy to seriously interview rappers, and now he's expanded to other people because I think he's run out of rappers. And he has some pretty terrible takes in general, this gaming one being one of them. But the guy is put in the work and created this whole, that people like me are ripping off his style, but because it's a good one, he pioneered that. I'm actually curious, to be honest, I would love to ask him about, because he has a computer science degree. And I want to ask him about the technology behind Vlad TV. Nobody's ever asked him about that. I bet you he's got some, to manage all the media and everything, he must have quite a technical operation. But I just thought that was interesting. Now I can have the clickbaity title that Tony Barnes exposes beef with DJ Vlad.
Beef with Vlad. Yeah. Just in case anybody wants to draw lines, Vlad was not the one that said that I don't look the way I sound.
Yeah, no, Vlad would never say anything like that.
No.
You know, say what you say about Vlad, but yeah. Another interesting thing I gotta ask you about, because like you've done a lot of fighting games, a lot of melee combat. You did Buffy, right? You did Killer Instinct, and now that was an era because I worked at a company that made fighting games back then as well, and all those guys ended up moving on to become like the creative director of God of War and all this stuff. And it was because at that time, there were very few people in the West that knew how to make fighting games. Like all the expertise was in Japan. That's why like THQ had UK or whatever make their WWF games because nobody in the West knew how to do it.
Yeah.
So there's
every time they tried, it was just dreadful.
It was a very rare skill. So how did you develop the expertise? Because I will say that people that I worked with before they got into game design, you know, guys like, you know, Eric Williams and stuff, these guys were all tournament Street Fighter players, like practically pros.
Yep.
So, and that's how and then a lot of them went into game design. And how did you learn how to do melee combat so well? Because it's at that time, and even today, very rare skill.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, I've been making games before fight games became a thing. But, I was drawn to even just, you know, Karate Champ back in the day. And like, I don't know, like kids, I guess kids nowadays have like John Wick and all that stuff. But, you know, my era was like Bruce Lee and various ninja movies and all that stuff. So I was always interested into martial arts and, you know, took a couple classes here and there, especially being a big nerd that always got, you know, got jumped like daily. Pick and choose what group would jump me because they all hated me. So you had to like learn how to fight. So I knew a little bit about body mechanics to begin with. But along comes games like Street Fighter, right? Yeah. Street Fighter drops. Actually, Street Fighter 1 dropped, and I played the one that had the big giant pads. But they quickly got rid of that because because it was in a bar. Yeah, they broke a bunch of drunk bros would just like elbow it and they broke it, right? So then turn the buttons, right? So instantly I'm like, well, this is interesting. And the reason it was interesting to me was because it wasn't about the moves that were on the marquee. It wasn't just about the moves that were told to you. It was about the moves in between. Street Fighter 2 drops, and it was just like, holy shit, wow, look at this.
It was so much better.
so good. So many hidden moves, so many different techniques, and so dynamic. Like who could come in and all this on who you were fighting. Not the characters on the screen. Like that's interesting, but it's like 8 of those or whatever. It's the flow of people, right? And them bringing their technique and all stuff. So I really got into fight games, right? And was in a couple tournaments, just local stuff, regional. But because I make games, always want to know how the hell these things worked. And what's interesting is, what was it? There was Champion Edition, I think it was, or Turbo or Super. Good Lord. It was one of those Street Fighters, right? And it came out and it was on test because in the Bay Area.
Yeah, you had Golfland.
Lots of stuff. Yep. Golfland, which is down the way.
Yeah, it's still there.
A lot of stuff got on test here, right? That nobody ever saw. Or we got it first because it was just easy. Someone rolled a machine literally out and down the block, right? So I'm sitting there and in comes, a new Street Fighter. And I'm playing it because I was already in the Street Fighter. And there was this guy, I remember this guy with a mullet, and he was sitting there hyping it up and all this. He was like, "Oh, I'm from Capcom," and I was like, ooh. Because when you see other people, especially back then, when you see other people who are like, "Yeah, I make video games," you're like, "Yeah, whatever," because we're a small, tight-knit group, and then people would say they did a lot of stuff, but they didn't. But this guy was legit, and his name was James Goddard, and like they had him. He got into Capcom, I think like their test or the shipping. He's a hustler, so he got in however he could, and he worked his way up, and he got their confidence to like start doing tournaments and shows and talking to the public, getting feedback, and then eventually he designed characters like T-Hawk and DJ. And like, so talking to him, it was like, "Oh, you're legit. You're not just some clown. No offense to the clowns that are out there, marketing stuff. But it's like, oh, you actually know what's going on underneath the hood. That's cool." Anytime that I meet anybody that can do something that I can't, I always interview them. I always start asking questions. I always want to know, right? While working on Medal of Honor, there was this guy they brought in, and he worked on COD, and he was supposed to know everything. And every time I'd ask him something, he didn't know dick. So I was just like, oh, okay, Fugazi. And he just goes off to the side. So if I term that you're legit, then, especially if you have like certain attitude, we become buddies. And so Goddard and I became buddies. And like the fight game community, it's like we all kind of know each other. So there's like, Goddard and Jaffe and this guy Tomowaki and me. We all just kind of like find each other because we're the only people that know all how this stuff works underneath the hood.
Yeah. That was the thing. Like the people that I worked with, they were all like that. I think they were all like, a lot of them from Ohio. They had this fighting game community, and they all kind of moved to LA, started designing melee combat games because, they basically reverse engineered how it worked.
Yeah, you reverse engineer, and like I said, because I've been making games for quite a while at that point, I understood, like, because Goddard had worked in the high level of kind of the structure that they made for Street Fighter to create characters and tune and stuff. But then when he started talking, I was like, oh, okay, I understand how I understand how I would build that system that you're talking about that exists. And eventually, actually, we ended up working together, and he designed the system that we had at the Collective that's in Buffy and Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Killer Instinct and Strider. Like, so the underpinnings of that engine is like one part like world-class adventure game navigation thingy, and then one part like world-class 360-degree brawling, fighting game. Like, because James didn't know any better, I guess a better way to put it is like the underpinnings in the engine that run, the Slayer engine that runs all that stuff, it can do things that the majority of brawlers can't, because it's built to be a 360-degree fighter, but as if it was 1v1, but it's not. Like, it can do some crazy things, you know. And all props to Goddard for shepherding that. You know, I primarily was like, yes, no, oh, I need this, and then focused on making sure that, you know, we had a game with Buffy, not just like a 1v1 or you know 1v2 fighter kind of thing.
But you were so when you were at, was it Double Helix? Is that what it's called? What's the place called?
The Collective.
Collective. I'm sorry.
The Collective, and then like the Collective, and then Shiny, the Earthworm Jim thing,
Yeah.
you know, merged and became Double Helix.
Right. Okay. And then they got acquired by Amazon.
Yes,
Now,
we did.
I got to ask you, because I have my own thoughts about this, but like, is Silicon Valley style business fundamentally incompatible with making games? And if so, why? I mean, I'm sure you're under a million NDAs, but I'm just, you don't have to be specific, but you went through the whole Amazon Game Studios ringer and you've seen it from the inside. I mean, you made a whole game.
I've made.
They got canceled. Like,
I made several.
What was the
games.
game with the golden ball?
I made several games.
Yeah.
At
what was the one that was like an esports game? It was like
that was Breakaway.
Breakaway, and it was like, you know, and then they shut it down after what? Like, it was very soon after it was released, wasn't it? It just seemed
I
to
think we went like 3 or 4 months.
It seemed to ruthlessly kill stuff after working on it for a long time.
Yeah, and you should see the stuff that we did.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's really sad. Like, we had a game, everybody on the team loved it. We all had fun playing, and looking at certain games that have come out, you know, lately, and even like, you know, like things like what they call friend swap and all this. Like, imagine a competitive, like really polished friend swap, for lack of a better term, right?
We were ahead of their time, I guess.
Man, we had this thing, and it was great, but you know, the powers that be really didn't like things that were fun and bouncy and animation based and like cartoony. You know, he wanted something that was just all dirty and gritty and serious. I mean, actually, he wanted Strider to be like Gears of Strider.
Can we mention who he is, or no? We should say he who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named, but I'm sure.
But the person who ran the ship.
Plenty of people know who he is. Like, and I remember telling him, because he really, really hated the way that I put Strider together. He wanted it to be Gears of Strider and just like super dirty and gritty and grr. And I said, man, that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, it's just about fun. It's like Fifth Element. And he's all, that's ridiculous. I said, okay, I'll meet you in the middle. I'll give you like Joss Whedon's Avengers, you know, but I can't go all grim, dark, you know, Batman Begins on this. That's just not that's not where it's at. And so like this really super fun team thing that we had got flushed because he's the master of gaslighting, and told everybody, well, the upper management doesn't want it, and then convinced the you know, the team, you guys don't want this either. That's just sad. Anyway, pivoted a million times, into Breakaway. And Breakaway, problem with Breakaway was there's a loop, but there's no meta, right? And Amazon, like Amazon corporate, they know how to take something and give you, you know, what you wanted and give it to you friction free. Like, so you can buy anything, it's friction free. You know, you can set up a server, you know, an AWS and all that. They try to make it as smooth a thing as possible, but it's all very corporate, right? It's not games. And so like, if they put something out and it doesn't work, it's kind of like, well, okay, move on, right? Because that's what they've done, is put something out. If it works, double down. Doesn't, move on, right? And it's worked for them.
Yeah.
But it's not games. And that's without even getting into the internals of how things are going on behind the scenes. But it's like, I to your question, is Silicon Valley incompatible with games? To some extent, yes. You know, what drives, what the motivators are, and the way that things are created and all this are the complete antithesis of how video games are made. And that's not to say that we could use some regulation, like some more stable protocols in our business as far as like how we create things. But ultimately, it's a creative endeavor, and it's a creative endeavor that is interactive, and it's a creative endeavor that's interactive to be sold to. Now at least people understand that there are certain market segments and all this, instead of it just being this bullshit, okay, we're selling to 16 to 24 males, right? That's like, there's the demographic. What does that mean even, right? Mm-hmm. Even that's stupid, right? And it's limiting. But it never went any further than that back in the day, where we'd actually go, okay, are these 16 to 24-year-old males, are they bike riders, or do they live on the coast? Are they in flyover states? Like, nobody cared about stuff like that. They just like threw out these stupid numbers, and like whether it was male or female, and then it was all just like by the numbers and how you attack things, and you tried to make things for as wide of that, as possible. Now, smart money goes, okay, I'm going to target people that like chartreuse, that are, into this anime, ... right? And you just kind of like go, and you focus, target them. And I kind of think that's actually better. But it does require you to actually like do the work of identifying the market segment, and not just like this big scattershot thing and hoping that the middle is going to work.
Well, I think it's partially because like these Silicon Valley companies, they need to make so much money to move the needle that they're always looking for that mass market hit, because being merely successful is not interesting.
Yeah.
So they'll throw everything out in the relentless quest to make, $10 billion off of a game, and as unrealistic as that may be.
Yeah.
And
but
plus,
it happens every once in a while. So then they're like, see?
Yeah. Why can't you just make that? It's like, well, they didn't know they were making that when they made that. And also like companies like, like Amazon and stuff, like they also have, I think, perverse sort of financial incentives where it's like, well, we don't need to make money on the games as long as the people who play the game buy more diapers. You know what I mean? It's like, and I feel like that's the same problem with the streaming video services like Amazon Prime and stuff. When they're embedded in a company where the revenue made from that unit is almost irrelevant to the rest of the company, they end up sort of mapping these other financial incentives onto it.
And that's one of the things that was a problem. I identified that early when we were bought, because I thought we were bought because we're scrappy and we make really awesome X slices. Like we make we make great stuff that's I like call simple, hot, and deep. It's really easy to get into, it's flashy and all that stuff, but there's depth there, right? But the games that we made weren't gigantic because we would have drowned trying to make our own GTA or whatever, right? So I thought, especially since they had a lot of costs and a lot of aspirations at the time, I thought, oh, we're going to be, their Halo team. And I don't mean like the Halo as in the game. I mean like as in like what car manufacturers and stuff have, which are these kind of sparkly pet project thingies that make everybody go, ooh, there's a reason that like, Chevy's into like, NASCAR and stuff, and Dodge made the Viper and all this stuff. I know I'm talking about American cars, but that's the point. It's like they make these things and you're like, who the hell's that made for? Who wants a rocket engine stuck to a V10? Well, there are some people, and it draws attention to your platform. So that all the other things can be elevated and sell, right? So I thought we were going to be doing that because we're good at that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, you have to make this giant thing. Have you heard of the word MMO? No.
Please do not do that.
Right? But for some bizarre reason, that did not, that message didn't trickle down. I got it, but others, I don't think, got it. And so they really were like, we're here to make games. And I'm like, we're here as a service to the other services.
Right, yeah,
and because, and so that dichotomy, I think, helped cause internal friction because I don't think that people understood what they were there for. I think a lot of people who are super talented and super great, like if they don't know the end goal, they're not going to be able to do their best work, you know? And so I think there was a lot of people all up and down the game organization who were not able to do their best work because they didn't understand what the end goal was, you know, among whatever other corporate jibber jabber.
What do you think about some of these games? Because there's a couple of games out now that like have taken some of your old games and made a new, like there's that new game that's kind of like Desert Strike.
Cleared Hot.
Yeah. Like, do you think they're doing a good job sort of reimagining some of your older work?
So I keep track of everything.
Yeah.
You know, anybody out there doing anything that's like my old game or whatever,
He knows about it.
I'm looking at you. I'm lurking. I reached out to Colin at some point. He's the developer of Cleared Hot because it reached a point where I saw it and I said, yeah, that kind of looks legit. That looks like what I would do or close to it, right? There's a lot of strike-alikes that I see and I go, oh, good for you. But it's not. I look and I go, yeah, that's cool. You're wearing, you know, a strike skin, but you're not what I would have done. You're not what I think is the evolution. You're not. But you know, cool for your inspiration. But when I looked at Cleared Hot, I was like, yeah. Now, Cleared Hot's interesting. It's a lot like what you kind of expect from a modern game developer or something, like very sandboxy. Not that Strike wasn't sandboxy, because that was kind of the point of it, but it's Cleared Hot is very sandboxy. You have like a lot of physical stuff that physics interact and stuff. Like, you know, you could use your grappling hook to grab a missile out of the air and kind of swing it back and throw it at someone and all that stuff. And I think there is an audience for that. I still think like one day I'll make my own new Strike. And it, you know, when it's like people are like, oh, what do you think Cleared Hot? You know, did it take your shit? No, it's fine. It's fine. First of all, by the time I'm done, you know, even if I started today, it would probably take me, I don't know, like 9 months, maybe a year to zero to hero to make a new Strike, at least the one I have in my head. So no offense to Clear or anything that comes along, you'll be kind of out of the conversation because that's how fast things move nowadays. But it's its own thing, you know. It's Strike inspired. It's very Strike looking. It kind of plays Strike like, but my thing is because I made 5, 6-ish. You know, there's like a port, but it's actually a real new game. But anyway, since I make several of them, and it's in my DNA, I could roll out of bed and sleepwalk through a new one. I think about what would I have done had I kept going, right? So people that are making homages to my old games, that is awesome. It's kind of the same way like I make an homage to, you know, Strider or something, right? But is it an evolution? No, because they are leaning in on what gave them the feels, you know, that game from the past. While I'm looking and going, okay, I'm going to make my new Strike. What's it going to be? And especially the way I think about mechanics and things like this. I don't see a lot of that in a lot of modern games that are very like mechanics and situation, you know, like you know, encounter focused. People are happy to just kind of let the algorithms just kind of do their thing and like plop the AI down and all that stuff.
Emergent gameplay, as I used to say.
Emergent, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's, you know, but I'm not making anything procedural anytime soon. Everything that I make is bespoke. I mean, here's a secret. In the Strike games, what you think is AI, especially the first ones, the 16-bit ones. There's really not any AI there. So every single thing that you see an enemy do was hand-coded by me or maybe John Manley. But John Manley's the co-director of the Strike series. But I took over most of the heavy lifting of like, implementing and everything from jungle on. So it's like, it's all bespoke. It's all like handwritten code. And yeah, the AI is that it turns and tracks you, but every movement and everything is like something that's sitting there on a path or thinking. Like it's not like a normal video game.
Yeah, like a
AI
state
NPC
machine or whatever.
all that stuff. Right? No, and part of that gives it its feel, right? And in modern terms, it needs to be more robust and all that, and not be hand coded. But people just kind of don't do that anymore. People like I said, they just like kind of get algorithms and kind of throw all the toys on the ground and see how it works. Mm-hmm. Well, like I literally sat there with graph paper and then eventually graduated to like Legos and like toys and like plotted out, on paper. And even to this day, I still do lots of layout and stuff on paper.
Oh, so you were doing the Kojima Lego layout thing, because I remember there was an article about Metal Gear Solid, and they showed how he was designing levels, and he was designing with Legos. Mm-hmm. And I was working at a company at the time, and I walked into the office one day, and they're all playing with Legos on the floor, and they're just like, Kojima did this, and I'm just like, we're making a fighting game. Like we don't need to make the map out of Legos.
That's a misunderstanding.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, paper, Legos, tangibles.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to get the 30,000 foot view, which I think a lot of games are missing. A lot of games are, like I said, either throw all your toys on the floor and see how it works out, or there's someone sitting there way deep into the minutia and they don't really see how it like works, So it's like, okay, this 10 seconds, that's amazing, that's great. But what's the next 10 seconds? And what's the 10 seconds before it? Like,
so I was going to ask, are you like, because I feel there's kind of two kind of designers. Sometimes they're embodied in one person, but there's like the big picture designer and the minute-to-minute gameplay details designer. And usually they're kind of two different personalities. Like I kind of find like with the way I like to make games is I'll be like, hey, I want to make a game that has these 5 design pillars. Now, how they're actually implemented, I really don't have the time to do it. Or the inclination, because I have to write code too. And I like to work sometimes with people, not on my most recent games that I've been working with, but like I've done this in the past, where I'm like, I'll have somebody design the moment-to-moment gameplay for that one sort of like design pillar that's required of the game. Because I feel like I could probably do moment-to-moment design if that's all I had to do all day. But so you seem to do both, the big picture design and the minutia, the minute-to-minute design. Do you have to context switch? It's like, how do you switch between those two modes? Or is that just one mode?
I'm actually trying to think, is there a conscious...
Well, like when you like make a game like Vector Guard or whatever, you must be like, okay, I want to make this kind of game that has this kind of feel. But then implementing that requires minute moment-to-moment gameplay details.
Yes.
Kind of like you're saying.
So, okay, let's look at Vector Guard. So, overall it was, I want to do the Caverns of Mars thing. I want to go down, I want to blow something up, and I want to rush back up. And I want to blow up a lot of shit in between, right? So that's the high level. And part of that high level was I want to have this rush, it's exhilaration and anxiety when you're coming back up. And so that's your high level, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, then you get into the moment. I built everything starting with the player. I've done that for 40 years. Mm-hmm. There's very few games that I've worked on that I didn't start with the player. And a lot of people say that, and let me be clear, it's get the player up and running, and it feels good in an empty box. It feels good in an empty box or a box with like a a pillar or two, right? So that you have an understanding of like what you're moving around in or whatever. And then I work on the interaction. What does it do? BPM jumps or, vector guard shoots, right? So I just like keep building out, and then I get a solid player base. It has all of the verbs that the player can do at the time. And I say at that time for a reason. Then I'm like, who's the dance partner, right? And in vector guard's case, turret. First thing's a turret. Okay, it's not even the first turret that you actually even encounter. It's usually somebody in the middle, and it's like, how fast does it track? How fast do the bullets go? And we do this dance, right? Till I get to the point where it's like, yep, yeah, this feels good. And then we start like, the dance is, maybe I change the player a little, maybe I change this thing, back and forth, to the point where then I'm confident that every change I make on this side, the enemy or hazard or whatever interaction point, every change I make to this, I know is going to work over here, so I don't have to worry too much about this. And then I just start building out. And in the case of vector guard, I didn't really plan much, but that's because it's kind of utilizing a lot of muscle memory that I have. I have like, here are a bunch of types of enemies. Here's a hierarchy of enemies that you need or whatever. Here's a bunch of interactions that you need, So then I have like 64 crayon, box. And I tend to like games that every level or every certain amount of time, something switches up. New biome, new gimmick, whatever. So I kind of like to build games like that also. And at some point, I'm like, okay, all of this is going on. Then I start getting, basically just like it's a hierarchy. It starts out and it just keeps getting more and more granular, right? To the point where, like in the case of vector guard, someone said the other day, they were like, God damn, everything that Tony does is like super juicy.
What does juicy mean?
Juicy is a term, it's a technical video game term. It's a term that, means like it's visceral, it has impact, and it's like, it's not just like the visuals, like, but it's like, screen shake, and
that's what we call it. We call adding juice. When we're making these pinball games, it's like we need more juice on this effect.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where like in vector guard, there's screen shake, and the screen shake is not just like purling noise. In some cases, it's directional.
Yeah.
And some of the explosions actually are field of view bumps, so they'll do like this. And some of them are directional. So depending upon like if you're over here and you hit this guy, it'll be like bumping just laterally. Because just screen shake, sure, everybody is like kind of like, I don't know, play Luftwaffe or whatever those games are that where there was like a whole big thing, oh, make your game juicy. Yeah, it's cute. But it's taking it to the extra step. If you blow something up in vector guard, it spews out a lot of particles. The particles collide. There's debris that it's like, like I break apart the model and it goes flying and all stuff. Those things are like the timing on them and everything, like they move slower than they really should. And that's an old trick from movies back when people used to do practical effects. If you want to make something seem big, you make it move slower.
Yeah, undercrank the camera.
And so here's a secret. Vector guard may look like a side scroller, but it actually is top down because it gave me a lot of advantages for managing the physics and stuff like that. Like the sparks and the particles are at a certain speed and they die off at a certain time. There's all these little things that happen, including even like understanding the delta between the ship and whatever blew up. I know how far away you are, and then how much of an impulse, a directional impulse to give. So if you're right up on it, it's just gonna go flying. And of course, because I don't care that it's not really 2D, things will fly at the screen. Sometimes that happens on purpose. I'm not saying underneath the code that there are stuff like that. But there's lots of little things like that are going on in a game that looks like super simple. But what happens is everybody that touches it, everybody that plays it goes, it feels great. Feels great to do this, feels great, and to do that. And so they're still engaged. And then you get to the point, of course, like, encounter design and all this stuff. So it's about like, okay, right now, I want the player to feel comfortable. So we're gonna make this part have nothing in it. And then this guy is just over here, just out of view. But this thing's over here. And, when you get pulled over here, this guy is just close enough to be in view. And he starts shooting at you. Of course, probably your instinct is to move away from the bullets, which is actually going to move you up here, where here's a guy that you didn't see at all. And it's like, you just kind of like craft these scenarios. It's not just plopping down guys in the environment. It's about what do you want the player to experience. And so even in a simple shmup, I'm guiding people. I have intent for them. The enemy placement and the power-up placement and the way that everything works together is to try and elicit this response that I want from them. And even if they don't tell me, like if I'm not there watching or they don't like stream or something like that, I know to some extent they've got it if they go, I love this game, or they don't go, screw you, uninstall 1 star, right?
Yeah, the juice thing's interesting too, because I get this argument a lot in some games that I'm working on is like, scoring complexity and stats, systems design versus juice. It's like, oh, well, we're giving the player, 20% more points if they do this and that. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to visually, I need to juice it. Like the player needs to see it because players don't understand math. They don't know numbers. Unless the numbers are huge and they see them grow, that's a visual juice. Yeah, like some games are just about feel. And like, I feel like sometimes I'm sort of like adjacent to the shmup community when I'm some of the games that I've worked on. Like shmup guys are really into scoring mechanics. And I think that's why they're niche games. Because like people who really care about scoring, it's a very small sliver. People want to feel, games sometimes don't have to even have gameplay. They just have to feel cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an experience ultimately. And are you having fun with it? And that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I think at some point, as soon as I can find some time, I'm gonna look at. You were talking about scoring and experience and all this stuff, and it just reminded me that I was thinking of making like an incremental game.
Yeah, I've been looking at that myself too. But it's all systems design. Like it's all like power curves and like how much time does it take to get to this level? Is that fun? Yeah, it's a whole other type of game design.
I'm trying to figure out how I can interject, what I do.
Yeah, your style into it,
right?
Yeah.
And maybe that makes a new genre. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was looking at some incrementals just because of like what you're talking about, where it's like it could be all juice and just I don't know, managing the sliders. But I also love things. Again, this is back to like the Street Fighter thing. I love it when you, and also probably one of the reasons that like I really love Destiny, is you can have what's seemingly like a level playing field or like a world that everybody has the same chance, but then someone comes out of the pocket and you're just like, what the fuck was that? Where did that come from? Magic missile, whatever. And so that attracted me heavily to Street Fighter and Destiny. And so like I like to make games also that like speedrunners dig and stuff, and people who are sequence breakers, and or someone, in the case of Vector Guard, will figure out, everyone else on the leaderboard, all of a sudden, they have like, 11, 12,000, and then this guy's got 64K, and you're like, how the hell did that happen, right?
Yeah.
So then, I don't know, you got to watch a stream or whatever.
Yeah, I do a lot of that, yeah.
And then you realize that he understood how to game the score multiplier that nobody else was paying attention to, right? I love just kind of building layers like that. And there are layers like that in vector card. It's just silly. Like, I mean, to a point where, like, if you hold down the trigger, you know, you're going to get a certain level of fire. A lot of people like to press the button and all that. That's fine, whatever. But if you actually regulate your rhythm, you can figure out how to get all crits all the time and do more damage. And it's all about just doing damage so you can get the thing out of your way. And I just love, I just like kind of building those little things.
And when you were doing Strider and of course Killer Instinct, right? Did you have any, like, how tough was it to like step into the shoes of an existing IP? Did you get any?
Well, I mean, by that time I worked on, well, let's see, Star Trek DS9,
Right.
X-Files, Buffy.
Oh, so you're an old hand at
Star
licensed IPs.
Wars,
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith. You know, we also worked on Indiana Jones. So, yeah, at one point, and part of the reason I went to the collective is because I saw what they were doing with, you know, with licenses, and I thought, oh, that's a place I want to be. And they'd only actually had like a early alpha Aeon Flux and like Men in Black, but they showed me what they were doing in Star Trek, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can hang with these guys. So yeah, by that time, I already knew a lot of the kind of drama or whatever, or like, you know, the kind of minefields that you run into with
you're good at
navigating you know, IP holders and whatnot. And it's really important that they trust you, because they're handing their baby over.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of places that hold a lot of IPs, they don't care. They're just IP holders and whatever. But a lot of these places, they care. They're handing their baby over to you. They want to know that you care as much as they care, if not more. So it's important to build that trust early on. I also tend to push really quickly, really early to see, like, to basically raise the acceptability bar.
Okay.
I did this on Star Trek SG-1 game that I was working on. And Star Trek SG-1's it's a poison, like a cursed license. So anybody that gets that in their lap, good luck. But I sent them a design, and it was a body of a scorpion, but where the scorpion head would be was a buff dude coming out of it with like a, you know, Egyptian collar and all this stuff. And I said, these are the kind of enemies I want to have in there. And by the way, yes, if you're wondering, no, the Star Trek SG-1 was before Mummy, the Mummy movie. And I am absolutely pretty certain that the rock, like, rendered Mummy thing in there came from the design that we did for SG-1. But because we ended up, that SG-1 game got canceled, and then we ended up pitching it to Universal because they were coming out with this new movie called The Mummy with Brandon Fraser. But anyway, point is, I threw out this design that at the time was like kind of insane. Just because everything that they were okaying was fine, but it was kind of in line with what the show ended up being, which is like people in costumes, you know, because they had a budget. And I was just like, you know, we're a video game. I want to do this. And they were like, oh, okay. And I said, oh, well, okay. So that sets the bar, right? It's like, I know I can do anything from the kind of, okay, weak sauce level that we're at all the way up until there. And, you know, and the same with like Strider and stuff. It's like, okay, well, I want to do X. Actually, you know, it wasn't so hard with them. It was more of like convincing them that I had respect for the actual IP and all this, and that I wasn't going to pull an other M with Hiru and have him chattering on.
I kind of like other M.
The game is, it's
bad writing, but the
okay.
game itself I thought was kind of cool.
But that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
They did not. Their trepidation was not necessarily with the game, like the other M game, but it was like how Samus was treated as a character.
Yeah, terrible.
And they were deathly afraid of that. It's like, no. I'm going to have him talk just as little as he needs to. No big diatribes about his mopey life and all that stuff. And that's the thing about Strider. Like, you know, you were talking about like kind of these underlying themes and all this stuff that, like, Strider is a game about hubris. So when you're playing it, if you actually listen to and pay attention to all the bad guys, everything that they say and everything that they do, they're just such egomaniacs. But, and this is part also, besides budgetary reasons, part of the reason that they return is, you know, you defeat them and then they return different and changed. And all of a sudden that hubris is taken down a notch. You'll get characters that go from just like totally dismissive to all of a sudden they're manic because they've never been bested, they've never been defeated. You get ones that are like, you know, super ultra confident and all this stuff, and then the next time you see them, the entire boss encounter is actually them running from you. They're talking shit while they're doing it, but they're running from you and throwing missiles, right? And so it's represented in the dialogue, it's represented in the encounters with the bosses, it's represented in their actual design when they return. I don't think people get that though. But like Strider is very matter of fact. You know, he's very much like, I'm just a hot pair of scissors cutting through to my goal. And I really don't have time for this. I really don't care. And it's not an ego thing. He's just like, you know, and he's very focused. While everyone else around him is manic and ridiculous and over the top. And that's partially, you know, because Capcom was like, don't make him Other M. But it's the way that I kind of saw it all coalescing as a story.
So you're kind of like almost a screenwriter to a certain degree, right? I mean, you came up with that story concept and that...
Yeah, because the story that was written by the, you know, the studio head that wanted it all grimdark and everything was kind of insane, and it would have... Strider fans would have been very upset.
Well, did you take into account the manga at all? Because as I recall, Strider is, in my opinion, the very first transmedia property because Capcom made it in the 80s as a manga plus a game at the same time.
Yes.
So did you go back to the source material?
Yeah, I mean, and you gotta understand, like, I have a video game bucket list. Like, and this is no joke. I think like 30 years ago, I opened up a Word doc and that was that. And I started writing what I wanted to accomplish in my video game career. And one of the things was make a Strider-like game. So, you know, for 25 years, I had thought about making a Strider-like game. And then when given the opportunity, it was like, And so, yeah, Strider encompasses all Strider things. It has part of the manga, part of the NES game, you know, the arcade game 1 and 2, little bit of Marvel vs. Capcom. Not as much as I wanted, actually.
Right.
Capcom were like, oh, you shouldn't do that, because they have this like very, very odd way of looking at it. They think there's action game Strider and then there's fight game Strider. And I said, there's an entire generation that only knows fight game Strider.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they're going to be like really kind of confused about the combat that's in here, because we had like combos and juggles and all this, and they were like, no, take them out. That's one of the few things that they actually like were very stringent on. Otherwise, I'd gained their confidence and all this, and they just kind of let me roll.
I wish they put Strider 2 on like PlayStation Plus or something. It was kind of a weird game.
Yeah, it's weird that it's not there.
Yeah,
but I think it's part of the whole drama. It's amazing our game got made. Honestly, it's part of a thing where you know, we were doing a game. Well, Double Helix were doing a game for Capcom, and but it kind of worked. It kind of didn't work out. But then they were like, you know, well, very honorable. Like, hey, sorry that didn't work out. What else would you like to do, right? And I was actually just kind of contracting at Double Helix just for fun, because I was not working there, and I was literally like just like gonna walk and go home and not come back. And the studio head said to me, like, "Hey, do you know like a Killer Instinct and Strider?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." So you know, I worked on the pitch for Killer Instinct, and I said to him, "With Strider, it's like, you know, that's." You give that to me, and it's mine. I don't mean like, you know, it's mine like, oh, you know, I'm the lead of it. I mean like it's mine, and I don't want to deal with any bullshit. I mean, obviously, I will work with the publisher and everything, but I don't want to deal with any like back and forth bullshit because this is an important thing to me. You're talking about Strider. Are you kidding me? You know, how are you going to pull that out of your ass, like, and coming to me like it's like asking me, hey, you know, do you want to go to a Prince concert? Like, fuck yeah, because anybody knows me, I love Prince, and Strider is like, you know, it was on my bucket list. It's actually number 3.
What's number 1 and 2?
Let's see. Number one's make an R-type like.
Okay.
Number 2 was realize Altered Beast the way that I see it. I don't want to say saw it because I
know
still
a guy.
see it.
I know a guy.
But yeah, it's like
I can talk to somebody.
But yeah, I mean like I have this vision for Altered Beast, and I've had it for decades. And you know, it's kind of, I don't know, Darksider's Light or something, you know, and I just think that the whole transformation thing is undersold. I mean, the whole, you know, the original game is underbaked, but I loved it when I played it.
It's not bad. You know, there's been this revisionist history where people think Altered Beast was not good. It was good. At the time, I thought it was awesome.
Well, you know, I mean, it came with, did it come with my Sega? It's one of the first
It came
Sega
with the
things,
Genesis,
right?
but I had played the arcade version first, and
Right.
when I saw it in the arcade, I thought it was the most incredible thing ever. And as far as side-scrolling beat-em-ups go, it's pretty good.
And I think that like there's just so much potential there with the whole thing of transforming and all this stuff, and just like thinking about it, where it's like you can have, you know, these transformations not just be, you know, a new button to do some special attack, but it's like, you know, kind of Metroidvania. It transforms not just your attacks or your defenses, but
your locomotion. Yeah.
Exactly.
Although they did do that weird 3D one. I vaguely recall there was an Altered Beast, terrible Altered Beast.
Yeah, I'm not talking.
Yeah, that does not exist. We will not talk about that.
That's not what
they have made attempts though.
But yeah, you know, I have a few things on my list, and that was one of them. And it was just like, yeah, I'm in. Okay, I'm not going home. I'll kick it here with you guys.
Yeah. So sometimes you do a little teaching, right? A little mentorship.
Yeah, you know,
occasionally.
I have these like weird things where I'll sit there and do my Yoda Morpheusisms and talk to students and up and comers and all that stuff. I like to talk shop.
But how do you do that without, like, you got to give these students space to build something culturally relevant for them now, but apply your wisdom to it without being like a hater, right? Like how do you just strike that balance? Because I feel a lot of games that, especially really young kids, like Gen Alpha play, are incomprehensible to me. But it's fine. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's like, okay, that's your thing now. But like we can apply our old man institutional knowledge of how to ship to whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like, again, what am I doing wrong, right? So like, I don't get a lot of the stuff that they're into, right? But I'm kind of like, okay, I should probably understand what their attraction is, because I'm really big on I like to know how people think. I love the psychology of these things. Again, even in simple shooters, it's about eliciting feel through the zeros and ones. So when I look at all these games that, you know, these kids do, or younger generation, that I don't get, yeah, there's a whole batch of it that I'm just like, what the hell, no. But there's stuff where I'm just like, I should probably take some time and actually, like, you know, come to grips with and understand what is their attraction to it, which also means I need to understand the culture that they've grown up in and what their mindset is in general, you know, whether they're playing a game or not, because that's the only way you're going to understand someone that likes something that you don't understand, is to understand them outside of the thing you don't understand. Anyway, so, you know, I'll do a bit of R&D on that, but when it comes to teaching, a lot of the fundamentals that I know in our muscle memory and things I've even forgotten, I think they still translate, regardless of what it is that someone wants to do.
Prime example, juicing things.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
You know what I mean?
juice has been around for a long time.
Yeah, it's like you can juice any genre.
And because I kind of understand the, you know, the nexus between like the emotion and the mechanics, I can, I can actually communicate that to people. It's like, like I said, I was at a showcase and there was a bunch of indies and all that stuff, and I was showing some stuff, and they were like, good Lord, your stuff's so juicy, and to them, they're just seeing the output, right? They have no idea what's going on underneath the hood, or they know what, some YouTube developer who hasn't done it or whatever is telling them, or, they're parroting something that they heard from some talk. Good Lord, man. The amount of people that have talked to me about the invisible tutorial as if I wasn't there. About, Mario has an invisible tutorial. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do, because when I first touched Mario, I'd already been making games, and I literally was like, holy crap, and I put down the controller, and I ran home, and I tried to replicate it, and I couldn't, and then all of a sudden, one of my other things is creativity, was it constraints breed creativity, right? So because I could not figure out how to replicate what I was playing and saw in Mario, and I ended up making like 3 platformers that had no jump in them. But then I had to get creative about how you would move around and all stuff. But the point is, like, when you look at something from the outside in, you can overanalyze it and come up with the wrong conclusion. I've had developers actually, like, multiple times this week looking at BPM Boy and then realizing that the entire world is curved. And instantly, even as I'm trying to tell them no about what their assumptions are, they're telling me, they're asking me, so what kind of problems are you having with collision with the whole world rotating? Or like, how are you doing this rotation? And like, how did you make the world like smaller? Like, how did you constrict the sphere that, in the world and then expand it? I'm all like, I am not moving the world. That would be a problem. But that's the kind of like outside looking in mentality. And some endless runners are like that, where the character's just staying there and they're moving the world. Well, the physics wouldn't even work, the way that this character works. The entire world is curved because I wrote a vertex shader, but they don't. That didn't occur to them. They wouldn't even think that. Yeah. Because they just look at the problem and they look at the output that's already there, and then they try and reverse engineer from there. And especially like if you're using something like Unreal or something, it's like if it's not like one of the just add water buttons there, you just don't think about it.
I guess I never played Animal Crossing. I mean, that was the first time I ever saw that.
They think
20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah, they think a BPM Boy is some large-scale Mario Galaxy where I'm adjusting to the center. And it's like, no. I'm big on, think smarter, not harder. So I'll help and teach with stuff like that. I'll teach about, giving people like things to think about that they probably weren't thinking about. And this is up and down the line. This isn't just like indies and newbies and whatever. This is like people that have been warming chairs for 20 years and they're like, oh, I know everything about X, Y, and Z. And then I go, oh, okay, well, and then we have a talk and I go, well, you might not know X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Or maybe you didn't think of it this way. And try and give them some fuel for thought so that they can go and do whatever they do and do it better, or at least like a little more, in depth and with more intent.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, this is great. I mean, you get any last words? You got a game out? You got Vector Guard. It's coming out. You got anything you want to promote? Where can we find you online?
Yeah, I always
you got a Discord.
Games. I don't know when this will go up, but Vector Guard will probably be out. BPM might be out. I don't know.
Well, this is going to go up probably in a week. I'm going to chop this up.
Oh, there you go.
I try to do one a month, so this is my March one.
Like I said, I have a backlog of games that I'm all hammering out this year. Check them out. If you like them, you don't. They're the kind of things that when you look at them, if you look at it and you go, that's for me, then it is for you.
Yeah. I could when we were showing Xenotilla Diva at PAX, we just watched people walk by the booth, And there was a certain kind of person that would turn their head, they'd see the screen, and they gravitate towards it. We ended up kind of building a profile of the average player, you know? There's a certain Venn diagram of interests that was interested in that game.
But yeah, anybody, you know, check out RetroNinja.com, check out my stuff. It's all over the place. I am open-ish to, you know, people, you know, so people can hit me up, and, you know, I'm
Sega should call you.
Oh,
Alter Beast.
yeah, Sega should call me.
Sega should, you know.
Because I can do a badass.
I know a guy. I'm gonna send this clip to. I know somebody.
Or, you know, if you want to get really frisky, I have a Space Harrier in my back pocket too.
I know a guy. I actually pitched a Space Harrier remake at one point and got pretty far, but then they did not want to do it. But I'm gonna do a little digging for you. I know some people.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, I love these things. I have love for them. I know how to revive them.
Yeah.
And I'm fast and cheap.
Well, don't say that. You're okay. You want to check? I might bleep that. All right.
But yeah, you know, I mean, like, I'm around. Retro Ninja, find me. Tony Barnes, find me. Say hi. I'll probably say hi back.
Okay.
If you get frisky and say something ignorant, you know, Lord knows where it could be, where it could go. But that's just, you know, that's the interwebs.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Cool. All right. Talk to you later.
Awesome.